Every successful company has this secret journey, one that most people never, ever see. It's all about how their security grows up. So today, we're going to trace that exact path, right from a founder's chaotic first days all the way to what we call a mature zero-trust enterprise.
Okay, so every founder gets financial debt, right? That's just part of the game. But there's this other kind of debt. It's invisible, it's sneaky, and it builds up with every single shortcut you take in that mad dash for growth. And this is the dangerous kind, the kind that can literally sink your company just when you think you've made it. So what is it? Well, we call it security debt. And think about it. It's the grand total of every rushed call you've ever made. Shared passwords, skipping those code reviews just this once, giving developers admin access to, well, everything. You're basically taking out a loan against your future security just to move faster today. But here's the thing about debt. The bill always comes due. And the interest rate on this kind of debt? It's just astronomical. I'm not kidding. Get this. Research from NIST, that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology, shows that a security flaw that costs, say, $1 to fix when you're designing it, well, that same flaw costs a $100 to fix once it's out in the wild. A 100x multiplier. And you're paying that bill with frantic late-night patches, full-blown incident response, and, of course, the damage to your reputation.
This really brings us to the core economic argument here. It's simple. Building resilience from the start is always cheaper than cleaning up a massive mess later. This isn't just a nice little philosophy. For a growing business, it's an absolute mandate for survival. So yeah, pretty much every company racks up this debt to some degree. But there's always a moment, a tipping point, when the bill suddenly arrives, usually without any warning. And that's when all those early shortcuts stop being assets and start being major roadblocks.
To help us map this whole journey, we're going to use a simple 0 to 5 maturity scale. Think of level 1 as that classic startup stage. It's ad hoc, it's all reactive firefighting. By the time you get to level 3, you're starting to get things defined and formalized. And level 5? Well, that's the goal. That's an optimized state where security actually becomes a strategic advantage. The problem is, most companies hit that painful tipping point somewhere around level 2 or 3.
So what is it that forces a company to finally deal with all this debt? Let's be honest, it's almost never a proactive choice. It's an external shock to the system. Suddenly, a huge enterprise customer demands a SOC 2 report. Or an M&A deal grinds to a halt during a security audit. Or the absolute worst-case scenario, a public breach that just evaporates all the trust you've worked so hard to build.
And just to be clear, this isn't some small niche problem we're talking about. The estimated annual cost of technical debt just in the United States is over $1.5 trillion. That is a massive drag on our economy, pulling resources away from innovation and dumping them into just firefighting. Okay, so once a company actually survives its tipping point, that's when the real work starts. This next phase is all about paying down that security debt. It's about moving from total chaos to having some real control and building a foundation that's actually solid. The very first principle here is something called separation of duties. See, in a startup, the founder can do everything, but in a mature company, that's a catastrophic vulnerability. SOD basically ensures that the person who writes the code can't also be the person who deploys it to production and approves the change. It's a simple idea, but it's what prevents a single compromised account from taking down your entire system. Next up, you have to completely rethink how you handle network access. The old VPN model, it's like a castle and moat, right? Once you're inside the walls, you can pretty much roam freely. That is so dangerous. The modern way is Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA, and the logic is completely flipped on its head. You verify who someone is before you even think about giving them a connection. Now, the really crucial part here is that ZTNA doesn't give you the keys to the whole castle. Nope. It gives you a key to a single room for one specific purpose. It's granting access to an application, not the whole network. So for an attacker, the rest of your infrastructure is, well, it's invisible, and they can't attack what they can't even see. And this very same principle applies to what we call privileged access, the God mode accounts. In a startup, it's chaos. Everybody might share the root password. As you mature, you move to something called just-in-time access, or JIT. With JIT access, an engineer doesn't have permanent admin rights anymore. Instead, they get temporary, boosted permissions for a very specific task, like, say, 30 minutes to apply a critical database patch. As soon as that window closes,
boom, their access is automatically revoked. This massively shrinks the potential damage, the blast radius, from a compromised account. So, by putting these foundational controls in place, a company sets itself on the path toward the gold standard of modern security, a full zero-trust architecture. This is really the aspirational end state we're talking about, our level 5 on that maturity scale. Zero trust. You hear the term all the time, but it's built on a simple, kind of paranoid idea. Never trust, always verify. It just assumes your network is already hostile. Trust isn't something you get because you're in the right location, like being in the office. No, it has to be earned continuously for every single request. So this whole mindset really breaks down into 4 key principles. First, you just assume you're already compromised. Second, you have to rigorously verify every single user and every device for every single request. Third, you enforce least privilege, meaning you give only the absolute minimum access needed to do a job. And fourth, you continuously monitor everything all the time. And right at the very pinnacle of zero trust, there's this amazing technique called single packet authorization, or SPA. Honestly, it's like an invisibility cloak for your servers. Before any connection is even made, a user sends a single, cryptographically signed packet. Only if that packet is valid does the firewall open a tiny, temporary pinhole just for them. To the rest of the internet, your server doesn't even exist. Now, this whole journey, this isn't just a technical exercise, right? It's really about transforming security from something people see as a cost center into a core driver of business value and, believe it or not, company valuation. And the proof is right here in the data on M&A deals. Check this out. Nearly 3/4 of dealmakers say an undisclosed breach is an absolute deal breaker. A mature security posture isn't just some nice-to-have feature anymore. It's a non-negotiable asset that can literally make or break a billion-dollar acquisition. The exact same thing is true for going public. The road to an IPO is absolutely paved with security milestones. More than a year out, you need board-level governance and SOX controls. In those final months, you're assessing material risks for the SEC. And by launch day, you better have heightened monitoring to defend against attacks trying to manipulate your brand new stock. And look, this journey, it never really ends. Reaching maturity just means you start looking over the horizon. It means preparing for a future where quantum computers can crack today's encryption. It means adopting hardware that enforces one-way data flow. And of course, it means building governance to manage the incredible risks and rewards of AI. So the big takeaway here is that we have to totally reframe how we think about security. It is not a brake on the business. It is the engine of sustainable growth. Your security architecture is what determines how fast you can innovate, how you survive a crisis, and ultimately what your company is even worth. And that brings us to the final question, and this is one I want you to take back to your own organization. Every single company is on this path from level 1 to level 5. The only question is, where are you on the journey, and has your security debt started to come due?